Rightio, welcome to Christmas Island. We're going to be doing a week of training here. Thought I'd take you through kind of every run that I'm going to do this week. Easy runs, sessions, the long run, some strength training as well. Haven't really had time during uni to really do this, so I thought it'd be pretty interesting to do, especially in a bit of a different place. It is hot up here, so it's about 28 degrees. I think the humidity is somewhere above 85, so I'm just absolutely dripping sweat. Had 50 minutes of running just then, running about 450 pace, which is actually decent. So my heart rate has been pretty good so far. I've been up here for 2 days already. Heart rate has been suspiciously low, but I am just absolutely leaking sweat like there's no tomorrow, and that makes me feel like I'm working much harder than I am. 10.4 Ks, 445 pace, average heart rate 156. We don't mind that at all. I just went on a pretty much straight out and back along Murray Road, which is towards the national park, empty, just kind of jungle covering either side, zero wind whatsoever. But yeah, that was my first run of the week. We did it in the Mizuno Mystery shoe, which I have mentioned a little bit of. This is going to be one of my favorite shoes this year already. I've done about 35-40 Ks already, and it's just so much fun. It's very flexible, lightweight, bouncy. This foam is just magic. I could see this being my favorite shoe this year, as long as it holds up and doesn't collapse in the next couple of days. Very good stuff coming from Mizuno. I'm very excited about what they've got next year. Some really good updates coming. That was my first run of the week. Tomorrow I've got a session, 2K and some 1 mile repeats. See you tomorrow for the session. It is Tuesday afternoon. I've already done my speed session today, so I thought it'd be worth chatting about how it got on. Had a pretty simple one today. We had a mile with 400 meters jogging followed by 2Ks. We did that twice, 90 seconds rest after the 2K. Goal paces for each rep were 325, I'd say, for the mile, and then about 330, 335 for the 2K rep. So I could kind of alternate going a little bit hard on the mile with a bit of extra recovery and then kind of cruise through on the 2K. We wore the Metaspeed Edge Paris, which I really enjoy. I'm finding this to be the perfect session shoe, really. It's not super protective underfoot, like has cushion, but it doesn't have the same level of softness and kind of compression that you get from other super shoes. But for those kind of faster, snappier reps, like 800 meters, a K, 2Ks, I just find that they give a really resilient bounce. Almost to me like it kind of gives you a little bit extra back when you put the work in, but they don't really feel like they're kind of, doing the work for you or giving you energy which you didn't really have in the first place, if that makes sense. Like some shoes like the Cielo X or the Alpha Fly, they kind of feel like they're doing more work than you are. But this one kind of feels like if you put in a little bit of work, you get a nice clean foot strike. It kind of rewards you for that, and I've really enjoyed it. Much more than the Sky Paris, I find this has a bit more rockering up front, and I'm able to actually get some compression out of that forefoot, whereas the Sky just kind of blew my calves up. In terms of the actual paces, we ended up hitting 328 for the first rep, which is a little bit behind. I think all of these paces were a little bit behind, but I'm going to put that down to the fact that it was 28 degrees and 85% humidity. Second rep, the 2K was 331, which I'm pretty happy with, all things considered, maybe a little bit quick. And then coming into the second mile rep, 332, followed by the final 2K rep, which we kind of blew up, 338, which again, like I was drenched in sweat. I was feeling very hot. Pretty happy to hold that together. 2K warm up and cool down, so 12 Ks of work for the morning, so 8K total for those counting at home. I think we just got an easy run tomorrow, and we'll chuck in my strength training as well, which will be good. So yeah, look forward to that. Okay, I've just got back from my strength training on this Wednesday afternoon. Had 10 Ks of easy running this morning, which was pretty uneventful. Ran in the Adidas Evo SL. We'll focus on the strength training, which was just then. I'm up on Christmas Island at the moment, so I paid for a 2-week gym membership, so I could get something done proper. The strength training that I did today was mostly just kind of what I was feeling, but it does give a pretty general idea of the kind of things that I believe in for my strength training and the kind of general things that I'll be given by my strength coach when I actually follow the program. Didn't follow what he gave me this week because I left the house, and when you leave the house without downloading something here,
there's absolutely no way to get a hold of it because the internet is just non-existent. So kind of went by feel today. We started with squats, doing 4 sets of 10, squatting 80 kilos today. So just some back squats. I personally just love doing this exercise. I feel like strength training for me is a balance between doing stuff which is good for me, good for my running, but also good for enjoyment, because nobody wants to go into the gym for, you know, an hour, 2 hours each week and just suffer. So squats for me are one of those things that I just enjoy doing. I like the feeling of good form, getting deep in the squat. 80 kilos was feeling decent. I used to be able to squat 110, 120 for 4 sets of 10, but I have kind of left the squat alone for a bit, especially during marathon training, and I have lost a bit of strength, a bit of muscle mass as well. So my next exercise, I'm just looking at what I actually recorded so I can remember. My next exercise is Bulgarian split squats, which is probably the most uncomfortable exercise in the entire gym. So using 2 12.5 kilo dumbbells, setting up with your foot behind you so all of the weight is on your front foot. It's quite uncomfortable, very hard to balance, but I do think this is one of those exercises that a lot of runners probably should be doing. I think it is very good in terms of, yeah, loading up your quadriceps, getting that deep stretch, and also a little bit of balance work as well. I'm not a huge believer in like the kind of Bosu ball single leg, you know, like standing on an unstable surface. I would much rather just load up my bones, muscles, and tendons, because I think that's the kind of adaptation that you want. You want to improve the strength of your bones, all of your different tissues. Kind of learning to balance, I think, has its time and place. But for me, in this time and place, I just want to get strong, and I don't want to get stress fractures, and I don't want to, you know, pull tendons, tear muscles. And so I think lifting heavy is the best way to go about that. But it's also just a bit of a tricky one to set up, getting your foot behind you in a kind of comfortable position that isn't going to hurt the top of your foot. I always find tricky, but yeah, we got through that okay. Straight leg deadlifts with a 45 kilo barbell. Not really loading it up heap, really focusing on a deep stretch at the bottom, working the hamstrings, a little bit of glutes. Again, one of those exercises that's a little bit uncomfortable, but yeah, pretty important to do. 3 sets of 10. Again, I find the 10 rep range to be just good mentally. I could happily go down to 6 or 8 as well, depending on how much I'm lifting. Hamstring curls, I find that this is probably one of the most effective ways to just really get a strong contraction out of the hamstring. I think you can muck around with weights and aeroplanes, you know, like when you stand on one leg and lean over, but this is just a way that you can get just raw strength through the hamstring. 3 sets of 10 again, working hard, a little bit time poor, so my final exercise or 2 exercises were calves, so working them in a standing and in a seated position. That's important because you want to be able to work the soleus, which can only be worked in a bent knee position. I've seen a few stupid reels on Instagram telling me that I'm going to work my soleus by doing some pogo hops, but yeah, you need to have a bent knee. So I did some standing calf raises underneath the Smith machine, which is a really good way that you can hold your balance. I had about 80 kilos on it, on top of a step, so I can get a deep stretch at the bottom. 2 or 3 sets, 10 reps, and then we went and had to improvise a bit. They didn't have a calf raise machine, so I got 2 25 kilo dumbbells, stacked them on top of my knees, and didn't really work super well. It was pretty tricky to balance it, but I think at the end of the day we did get a decent level of fatigue through the calves there. That's my kind of general setup for strength work. Hopefully on Saturday I'll have my second strength training so I can show you exactly what my coach would want me to do, but that's what I did today. Yeah. Okay, we've been stitched up a little bit. I seem to have caught a bit of a cold. Sounded a bit snotty yesterday. I was in denial for a little bit. But yeah, feeling pretty crap this morning. So decided to rearrange my week a little bit, which is one of the beauties of having a fairly flexible coaching program. So I've bumped today's 25-minute threshold back to Friday. I've then put the 50-minute easy jog that I would have had on Friday onto Saturday, which was just going to be a strength training day anyway. So that's kind of quite an easy way to solve that. I'm not really going to miss out on any running. Hopefully I feel better by tomorrow. Yeah, not really a whole lot more to say there. Feeling crap, yeah, hopefully we get better. Okay, it is Friday. We did our threshold session this morning, ended up doing 6.63 kilometers in 25 minutes. So we kind of backed it off to tempo pace, but even then I was still working almost too hard. So 3:47 pace for that. average heart rate of 172 beats per minute, which is quite high. But yeah, kind of in the right range, I guess. Koros reckons I'm kind of split between aerobic power and threshold. So that's kind of what I wanted. I didn't blow up. I managed to get through the whole thing. The Metaspeed Edge Paris, I thought, felt better the other day when I was running closer to 3:30 pace, which is kind of around half marathon for me. So half marathon and 10K paces, I think this shoe feels really good. But today, when I was doing a little bit slower, not really punching the ground as hard, I didn't feel like it was as forgiving, which might be an indicator for me that this is not a shoe that I want to use for a full marathon if it's not going to be giving me that kind of, yeah, that kind of comforting squish. It's definitely quite immediate, and that felt a little bit clunky moving slower. I still think that this is a fantastic shoe, and I'm still very impressed with how this has gone, especially considering that it is $330. I still can't get over that. I really like it. Didn't feel quite as good this morning. Also could be that I've got slightly sore legs. I did the warm up and cool down in this shoe as well. It didn't feel good for that. So this is not one of those super shoes that you can throw on, run the 2Ks to the spotted road or the park that you're going to do your session at and then do the session. This is definitely one that you chuck in your backpack, you have your warm up shoe, and then you switch before you start the session. So overall, I'm decently happy with that session. Could be worse. I could have blown up pretty hard. I think that was mature of me to adjust my paces there and end up getting pretty much the right training effect that we wanted. I'm still recovering a little bit. I think I will be 100% tomorrow. There's a good chance that I'm going to do my second strength training this afternoon because Saturday we're going to be out on the boat all day. So I'll throw that in as well, or maybe I'll talk about that on Saturday. Okay, we are here on a Saturday morning ready to chat about today's run and then also yesterday's strength training, which is pretty interesting seeing the contrast between my own strength training ideas and then my coach's. So this morning's easy run, pretty simple, 50 minutes of easy running, 9.7 Ks. We ran in the Mizuno Mystery shoe, which I still love, out along Murray Road. The crab migration has slowed down, so it was a lot less eventful. A few smelly dead patches, but other than that, pretty simple. It was 27 degrees, 87% humidity. So yeah, I was cooking. I am still sweating. You can probably see that on camera. But that's not the main thing I want to talk about. The main thing is the strength training. So I actually loaded my workout before I left the house. So we actually followed it. The workout itself, we started with 3 sets of squats, which I really like. Back squats, same weight as I did on Tuesday, but it felt a lot easier, which just goes to show how much strength you can gain just from a coordination basis, learning the movement pattern again, getting used to it. So 3 sets of 10, 80 kilograms, that felt much easier. Then we moved to 3 sets of Copenhagen planks, which was 30 seconds on each leg, working the hip adductors, which is definitely a weak muscle group for me. Very uncomfortable exercise. Then we jumped into 3 sets of 10 of hip flexors, banded we did for the first 2 sets, and then we used some cable machines after that. I've had trouble in the past with rectus femoris, which is one of the hip flexors flaring up into a bit of a tendonitis, so always good to check in on that. I think I'm definitely stronger through there, but yeah, good to work it nonetheless. After that, we did 3 sets of landmine rotations, which was a bit of a new exercise, loading up the barbell bar with, I think we did 15 kilos, and kind of just hoinking around, using the core, trying not to use the delts, which was a bit of a new one, and my core is absolutely busted this morning. So a bit of an interesting one, but I do like the idea of actually loading up your core. I'm not a huge fan of all of these like running core workouts, which are just planks or little ankle taps, which burn your core, but I feel like they're not actually loading it up and giving you actual strength stimulus. So yeah, I enjoyed that. Some actual core work which I can get around. And then finally we did some boat holds, bit more traditional there. Yeah, that's pretty good. My core's actually not too bad. I used to do swimming, so didn't find these too bad. 3 sets of 45 seconds progressing to a minute on the last one. We got through that okay. And that was it. That was my strength training. So you can probably see a little bit of a different focus there. Bit more well-rounded, I'd say, from the coaching side of things for the strength workout, whereas mine was a bit more brute force. So I think a balance is good. It's good to have one day of the week where you can kind of work the muscles hard, get some force through your bones and muscles, and then have one where you're kind of fine-tuning those kind of smaller muscle groups which often get neglected. So yeah, that's pretty much all for today. We're going to head out on the boat and we'll jump into 90 minutes tomorrow. Okay, last check-in of the week. This morning I had my long run, which was an hour and a half of easy running, 146 average heart rate, average pace of 5:03 per kilometre. Bit of a weird loop. We ended up dropping down 400 metres of elevation, only climbed 200, so we ran from drum site, which is this kind of middle level of the island. We ran up to the airport and then we descended all the way down to the bottom layer, probably 10 metres above sea level, wrapped around the island to the Flying Fish Cove where I had a swim, which is quite nice. Ran in the Adidas Evo SL, which is probably one of my favourite long run shoes right now in terms of being quite smooth and resilient. This foam doesn't bottom out, but it's not super stiff or really propulsive, I'd say. Like, it's still got a little bit of flexibility. It definitely softens up over the run. I don't think this is going to be the kind of radical super trainer that I was expecting, or that most people are probably expecting. It's definitely not a super blast competitor, I'd say, in the sense that it's doing this exactly the same thing as a super blast, but it is going to be doing a very good job in the daily training space. This to me is something that's going to ruin the Nova Blast for a lot of people because it's got a better foam, it's more resilient, it's more bouncy, it's lighter, and it's coming in at a very good price point as well. So really enjoyed this shoe. I'm almost at 100k, so I'll pretty much share a full review very, very soon. And I guess the same for the Mystery Shoe and the Metaspeed Edge. We'll get some reviews on those out very, very soon. In terms of my weekly total, we ended up with 70Ks for the week, which was less than I probably would have been doing if I was still down on the farm in Perth. I think that this training has been adjusted for the fact that it has been very warm, very humid, and I have just been busy as well. It's pretty hard to wake up at 5 o'clock to go get your run done before the sun comes out and then go out for a day of swimming and boating and everything else like that. But overall, pretty happy with how that week of training went. 2 quality strength sessions. Just had a pretty good time up here. So yeah, that's what my week of training looks like. I get that it's not the most engaging, explosive forms of content, but sometimes it's nice just to follow someone through their week, see what they do. I'm sure there's a few things that people will pick up or notice. So yeah, that's what my week of training looked like this week. We'll get some shoe reviews out pretty soon. Yeah, that's about it.